Continuing. Facing the connection. Part 3 of this article. My apologies. The last two videos or so reading this article have been a bunch of clunkiness as I try to fumble through all of this and make connections that I probably don't necessarily have to make, but let's continue anyway, because I need to get all of this out of my head. Part 3, Mercury and Gemini in the first house. Once again, costuming Gemini in the first house. What I mean by this costuming thing, if the first lesson is the first house, then the first lesson's second chapter would be Taurus, and its third chapter would be Gemini. This would not be the third lesson. This is still the first lesson. The first lesson ruling the first house is Aries. When the occupation changes to the second chapter in the first house, it is depicted by Taurus, following the rules of the first house, Aries and Mars. So when Gemini moves into the first house, it too will follow the rules of the first house. It is neither of these two are rulers there, and for good reason. The day is here. Aries has moved into the sky, and Taurus has given way to Gemini. The planted rod marked the rise and the set of the sun. The division will be marked, meaning this division. The third rod of the house of the Zenith, the third rod of the house is the Zenith. This third rod is the depiction of the Zenith. The first house, the second house, the third house. The space between is filled with air. You see the bowl is above the disc. The bowl is above the disc. The two rods brace the two crescents. The left and right are the same. The divide is not visible. The divide is not visible. We have yet to plant the third flag. In your mind, Sagittarius points at the center. In your mind, Sagittarius points at the center. Gemini has moved to the first position, forcing these to move around. Gemini is now in the first house. Sagittarius is partnering it in the seventh. In your mind, Sagittarius points at the center. Sagittarius pointing at the center. Or the rectangle. Are framed with the glyph up and down reflected. The glyph is a reflection here on Earth. Here on Earth, the horizon is set by two rods. The dawn and the setting. This bowl and this bowl are the mental understanding of the world below as measured by the sky above. Virgo's Earth stands in the 4th house. Gemini, Virgo has moved into the 4th house. Virgo stands in the 4th's water, and Mercury is in the 2nd cardinal position. The V of the 5th house looks up into fire. Aries is in the 11th house. The V looks up into the 11th house, where Aries is now occupying. Taurus is in the 12th house. The air in the 1st house reflects that fire into the 7th. The fire waxes into the 1st quarter's air. Fire has waxed into the 1st quarter's air. The 1st quarter's air. Fire will set. Fire will set. Gemini in the 1st house. Gemini's opposite is Sagittarius. Jupiter in the 2 remaining cardinal points. Jupiter has moved into the 2 remaining cardinal points, this cardinal point and this cardinal point. The arrow of Sagittarius looks past the center into the 1st quarter, a selfless Mars. Sagittarius looking into the 1st quarter when it's on the setting of the horizon has no self. It is one of 3 fire signs. When Gemini moves into the 1st house, it moves into partnership and judgment, and it looks through into the 1st quarter selflessly. It is a pure measurement of travel. Taurus is in the 12th house. Venus is in the 5th, and it sees Venus in the 12th. Venus has moved into the 5th house, and the view is depicting the 12th house, because Taurus has moved into the 12th house. The 2 rods in Gemini are visually connecting to the 2 rods bookmarking the 10th above and the V below. Gemini in the 1st house becomes a depiction of our understanding of the visible and the achievable. And like Libra, it has 2 poles, 2 rods, 2 mental understandings, one of labor and service, and the one of Scorpio, which I have yet to understand the current definitions of Scorpio. I do not necessarily agree that Scorpio is all about death. I do not necessarily agree that Scorpio is all about perversion or whatever else Scorpio is. I don't know why it became the green M&M of the zodiac. I don't understand that at all. That seems to me to be a residue left over by Christendom in Europe somehow. But if the M is a depiction of mental understanding in astrology, then the Virgo depiction of astrology is the crook attached to the mental understanding, the connection. And the action of mentality can be possibly an id form of the mental understanding, the two scales of Libra, so to speak. If Libra is a pair of scales, then these are the two mental bowls that those scales are measuring, hanging on the leverage of these horns. These horns are simultaneously, if these are the bowls, these are simultaneously the separation at the center, the division of the human brain. At the same time, they are the wiring of the human eye, approaching its X at the center of the optical nerve as it passes into the back of the brain. Shown very, very clearly by this image. Now imagine, if you will, here's the horizon and here is Libra. Here is your X. These are the two limitations of Saturn. This is the sun, this is the moon, or this is the sun and this is the moon, however you want to say. Or this is the sun and this is the moon, or vice versa. The symbol, the glyphs of Libra, and the two M's, one servicing, one covering, are these. And for the duration of this video, which is quickly approaching its end, I will merely go through some of these other images that I have collected here. Is this the first astrolabe? Could one use a spider web to observe the disc of astrology? If one were to just gather this branch and view the night sky, one could actually measure these bars through. Is this the first zodiacal circle? Is this why Cancer is a crab? Is this a book spider? A scorpion spider? Is this an honest depiction of the M? The M, the stereoscopic image, the two arches accumulating at Libra. Is this an image? Is this a more honest depiction of what I'm talking about? The rod, the horizon, the accumulated image, and its two mental counterparts, all in the third house of connection. Is this an honest depiction? Aries passing through the first house accumulating through the two rods of the seventh house, the V of the seventh house. Is this a depiction of the zenith, the measurement? Is this the first image of the crab of Cancer? Are these the two rods of Gemini? Are these the two crescents of Gemini? I honestly don't know. Is this a depiction of this? Is this the X of the 10th house? Is this the center? Are these Saturn and Saturn? The two eyes looking at the limitation of the two signs. Two eyes looking at the limitation of the sky. The rotation of the sun and the moon, the sun and the moon. I can't get enough of this puzzle. This is probably the most intriguing graphic puzzle I have ever seen. All of those diagrams, like this one, like let's see now. What other ones do I have here? Like these.